the employee attitudes and behavior. If you are in a society where inequality is high, and if you are stressed, then obviously you are unlikely to be productive at your workplace. So those are the kind of things that we find in the literature, that there are many ways in which the societal inequality also affects the organization. It also affects the entrepreneurship and growth. So far what we have seen is that economic inequality includes or encompasses endowments and access, abilities and opportunities, financial and non-financial resources, and that it is more than wealth and income inequality. And businesses play a role in economic inequality, and economic inequality hurts businesses too. So this is what we know from the research so far. So this research has not fully examined the socio-cultural factors. So that is where the next paper comes in, and I wanted to share this paper because of its relevance to India, but also because this is the work in progress, where we are trying to understand how social factors reduce the business incomes of people, or reduce the or increase the inequalities of income. So this paper I'm working on with three other professors. One of the professors is from IIM Bangalore, that is Pratik Raj. The second professor is from Singapore Management University. His name is Dokan Elter. And the other professor is Thomas Rule. He is from Cambridge University. So what we do in this is that we develop the idea of institutional stigma. Right? So we know from the previous research that stigma results in income inequalities for individuals and groups. That is, like if you think of racial minorities, black people get paid lower than white people. LGBT employees get paid lower than the regular employees, or the heterosexual employees. And people from lower social status, they tend to get paid lower. So this, we know that the stigmatized communities and individuals receive lower incomes. So what is stigma is a discrediting attribute that is ascribed to individuals and groups. So stigma is when you say that something is not good enough, or despite one being equally good. So what we say is that stigma can be institutional in nature. It is not about what the individuals have done. Like for example, people who are prisoners, who have been to prison, they are stigmatized. So it is not about the crime. And organizations which are involved in some scandals, they get stigmatized. So it is not about the wrongdoing, but without you doing anything, the society or the social processes can attach stigma to people. And these social processes are widely diffused. It is not about one thing or the other, but it is many, many different things that come together. Whether it is in terms of how you speak, how you look, what you eat. So there are many ways that people can be stigmatized. And then the stereotypes are widely shared. That means it's not about some people thinking that others are bad, but it is the larger society thinking that one particular group is bad in some fashion, or not good enough. And third attribute that we highlight is that there is a public disapproval of the group. So stigma can be at the institutional level, or when we say institutional level, it can be attached to a group of people because of their characteristics, okay, because of their origin, or because of their demographic characteristics. So what we hypothesize is that institutional stigma is negatively associated with income. So this is because people who are stigmatized are seen as less than equal, like they're not as good as rest of the people. So as a result, they tend to get lower resources and opportunities for the same educational qualifications, for the same effort. They might not be given as much value. The second hypothesis that we have here is very interesting, in fact, is that this negative effect of institutional stigma on income is higher at higher levels of social capital. Because normally so by social capital, we mean the social relationships that people have with others. So when you have a good number of social relationships, they actually help you. They help you to get information, they help you to get recommendations, they help you to get opportunities, they help you to get access to credit. We know that social capital helps in a number of ways. But what we are saying here is that the negative effect of stigma on income will be higher when
Sir, your audio. Please speak. In between, your audio got. Yeah, now okay. Now okay. Please. Yeah, please.
Can somebody tell me if I should continue or there's a problem?
Yes, sir. You can continue. Sir, can you hear me? Hello. Hello.
Technical support or Professor Krishna Kumar or anyone?
Yes, we can speak.
Hello.
Sir, Balasubramanian here. Sir, can you hear me, sir?
Hello.
Hari, sir, can you? Sir, can you hear me, sir? Balasubramanian here.
Just give me 1 second, please. Can you hear me now?
Sir, very, very low volume. It's clear. Yeah.
Have you been missing me for a long time, or this is just happening?
Just happening, just happening.
Okay. So just give me 1 second. Let me see what's happening.
Please.
But yeah. So let's continue then.
Sir, audio volume is low, sir. Audio volume is low.
So let me increase the volume. Is this better?
Yes, sir. It's better now. It's better. Yeah. Can you increase the volume in your system, in your system?
Yeah, I've increased it to the maximum.
Maximum. Okay, then it's perfect, sir. It's perfect.
So we were talking about the negative effect of institutional stigma being higher at higher levels of social capital, because just because you have the relationship doesn't mean that you can leverage it. You might not be able to ask for a favor if you are a stigmatized person, and also even if you ask for a particular favor or particular information, you may not get the most benefit out of it. Like, because you're stigmatized, the people would assume that you're not good enough, you won't make use of it. So as a result, they may not give you what you are asking. And another more nuanced angle on this is that it is higher at higher levels of bridging social capital. So the social capital is seen as two forms, that is bonding social capital and bridging social capital. Bonding social capital is the one that you have within your community, and bridging social capital is one which is outside the community. So we say this because this is the social processes are more salient in outgroups. That is, if you are trying to get a favor from someone who is not from your community, who is not from your group, then if you are stigmatized, you are likely to feel the negative effects much more. And then we say that, but this effect, the negative effect, is likely to be lower at higher levels of human capital. This is because even if you are a stigmatized person, education can reduce stigma, and also stigmatized people can better manage the stigmatized identity. They can hide some of the stigma markers. They can speak better. They can dress well. they can show all the various objects that they can show the various objects that would be valued. As a result, it can change the stereotype. So we talk broadly about these negative effects that become higher at higher levels of social capital, but become lower at higher levels of human capital. So each of these hypotheses, to test it, you need to have a very rigorous approach. So what we do is we use the India Human Development Survey of 2011, which surveys 42,000 households in 373 districts, and of the 40,000 plus households, 8,800 households say that they own a non-farm business. So we look at the business income of a household, that is combined business income of each household. And to capture the institutional stigma, we say that the Dalits or the scheduled castes are the ones that are stigmatized over the years and continue to face discrimination. And then for social capital, we take the measures that they have in the survey, that is acquaintance with members of 11 different professions, like lawyers, teachers, bankers, politicians, police people. So they identify 11 different professions and ask the individuals whether they know people in these professions. And they also ask whether they know them within the community and outside the community. And finally, we take human capital, which is the highest adult education that goes from 0 to 16. 16 is it is 16 when it is when the education is bachelor degree and above. Now, when you are doing this kind of analysis, you have to control for a lot of alternative explanation. Right? So stigma, like for example, you can say that just by being Dalit doesn't mean that you face stigma. You have to see whether they actually face untouchability or not. So the India Human Development Survey it's a very comprehensive survey which collects data on a number of things, including the reported untouchability by houses. So we calculate the untouchability experienced at the household level and also at the community level. Each caste, what's the level of untouchability experience? And then we control for the size of the household. Like when there are more people, obviously there'll be more hands to earn income from the business. And then also number of businesses. So if there are more businesses, then obviously the income will be more. We control wealth. We control for wealth with the proxy of whether they own land or whether they have access to a cultivable land. And then we also control for the tenure of residence, that is for how long they've been in that particular location, so that when you are in a particular location, you have more reputation, you have more relations, you know what to do. So that's one particular set of control variables. Then we have the socio-economic disadvantage. And as we know in the Indian context, it is not only the Dalits or scheduled castes which face the disadvantage, but a number of others also face disadvantage, like the other backward castes, Adivasis or scheduled tribes, and Muslims and religious minorities. They face discrimination or disadvantage. And these are all known through a number of studies. So we also control for each of these, as in we have a dummy variable that captures each of these. And then we also capture the location characteristics, like urban locations have higher income, so we capture that, we control for that. Average income in a particular location would have an effect on the income of the house, so we control for that. And if there are more Dalits, for example, in a particular location, then it might have an effect because then there may be less stigma attached. So we control for that. And then we also control for what can be seen as a social class. And in research, it is commonly used, a common proxy for that is his father's occupation. If your father was, for example, like a white collar worker, then you're supposed to be like higher class, so higher socioeconomic status, and blue collar, then it is lower socioeconomic status. So this the India Human Development Survey categorizes the father's occupation into 116 different categories, and we control for all of those. And then we also run the district and control for district effects and industry effects. That is, as we all know in business, that different industries give different levels of profits and income to people. So we do all of these rigorous controls and show the results. So these are the descriptive statistics, which obviously I know you cannot read, so I won't spend time on those. So these are the regression results. But let me show you this in pictures. So the first picture, as you can see here, is that this is of the income gap that individuals pay. So if you see, this is the Dalits or the stigmatized group. So this is the average income of a non-Dalit group. Like if you want to look at the number, it is 1,11,168 rupees per annum per person. This is normalized for the individual. And whereas if it is Dalit, their income is about 60,879. So the gap is a little over 50,000. But when you add the controls, that is when you add education, wealth, when you add the location, when you add the number of people, all of those things, that gap reduces, but the gap still exists in terms of about 30,000. And for OBCs also, the gap reduces from 23,000 to less than 10,000. But interestingly, we normally think of SC and ST as together or similar in many aspects. But here, like what we see is that the Adivasis or scheduled tribes, they have an income gap, but when you add the socio-economic controls, their income gap disappears, and in fact, they actually make a little bit more, or for the same level of education and wealth and all of those indicators, they make a little bit more money. That's a little over 4,000 rupees. It's not significant statistically, but it's definitely a gain for education that they see. Similarly, in case of postage, the gap is about 14,000 otherwise, and when you add controls, they actually gain a little bit, which is about 5,000 some. So this is what we see in terms of the gaps. Now, let's look at the interaction effects. That is what happens when the social capital comes into play. So, as you can see here, what happens with the social capital is that so this is the income of people who are not stigmatized. So, with increasing social capital, that is, if you know more and more people in these different professions that we talked about, your income increases if you are not a stigmatized person. But the same effect you would not see for the stigmatized people, or in this case, Dalits. And the same goes for bridging social capital. As you can see, if you know people in those 11 professions, and if you're not a stigmatized person, your income level goes up with knowing those people. But if you are a stigmatized person, or if you're a Dalit, then your income actually is kind of flat. Here you can see a little bit of an upward slope, but here it is flat, probably even a little bit negative. We don't find I saw a question come up. We will discuss these questions in a moment. So we don't find the positive effect of the human capital or education that we have hypothesized. But the gains from education are similar for both the stigmatized groups, that is, and the rest of the groups. So to sum up in plain language, give the effect sizes as well. So business income of a Dalit household is about 15.9% lower. When you control for all the things that we could get data on, all the things that we know theoretically and empirically to have an effect on income. One standard deviation increase in social capital would increase the business incomes of non-stigmatized groups or other castes by about 17%, whereas that increase is about 6% for Dalit households. So you can see about 11% difference. And for one unit, one standard deviation increase in bridging social capital, that is relationships with other communities, there is a 10.8% increase in business income for other business people, whereas there is no such increase for Dalit business people. And the bonding social capital, we have not hypothesized, but we have tested for it. That is, for the relationships within the community, the increase is 8.4%, and that is same for both stigmatized groups and non-stigmatized groups. And one standard deviation increase in human capital increases the business incomes of both, or rather all caste business people by 16.56%. So that's the summary of all the findings that we have. So I will stop here and leave it open for questions and answers.
Yeah, dear participants, you can raise your queries in the chat box. You can type your queries in the chat box. I request the participant to select all panelists and type your queries there.
Yeah, so there's one question here that is, yeah, so are we going to do this by a chart or I'm happy to do either way, that's perfectly fine.
No, sorry.
Okay. Okay. Good morning, Professor, or good afternoon. You could be very much in the afternoon. I'm Professor James. I have a question on the Adivasi lower gap. I believe it could be because the governments have very strong affirmative action in favor of them. And given they are also getting equal on education, those people who are second generation children of Adivasi or even first generation postgraduates or professional graduates could be easily into getting into top class jobs straight away. And they are especially in places like Kerala or in your own Hyderabad. Have you taken that affirmative action into consideration in your research?
So let me add this. So there are a couple of things that you mentioned. First of all, we have to remember that we have control for education and all of those things, right? So that's one. The father's occupation, the wealth that they own, education, those things we have control. The second aspect that means we've taken that into account. And the second aspect is that the affirmative action is similar for both the Dalits and Adivasis. So why only Adivasis would be able to overcome this disadvantage that they have, or rather, why everybody else is able to overcome? Even OBCs have affirmative action. Right? Why everybody else is able to overcome, but not Dalits, is an interesting question. So that is where I think we need to think further. But what we see in other areas, for example, there's an interesting paper run by some economists. I don't remember all their names at the moment, but in this paper, what they showed was that they look at the number of other castes in a particular location, and what they notice is that Dalits and I think even OBCs, they suffer in terms of health, like in terms of the nutrition and the height, because of the discrimination. But Adivasis do not face this. I think that partly maybe because the Dalits face a very different kind of discrimination, and a different kind of in the social structure. Their position is very, very different compared to Adivasis, who have always been outside of the village structure. That characterizes the caste system. So that is the way we are thinking about it. But you are very right. This is a very interesting observation that why do some groups why are some groups able to overcome this and not others?
I have done a working paper or a study in Kerala regarding the steady growth of Muslim children, educated Muslims in Kerala. If you take medical education, extremely competitive medical education in Kerala, as well as just like in other states of India, around 39% of all merit admissions in Kerala medical colleges, government medical colleges, are now almost for the last 10 years from the Muslim community. Surprising. And even in the engineering, around 18% of the entire merit admissions in Kerala, top class engineering colleges are from the Muslim community. The moment Muslim community got into mainstream in Kerala, they got out of the stigma. There is no more stigma. Part of the reason why they got out of the stigma was the money came in from Middle East and elsewhere. It was not generated here. And they really got it. I think CDS, Center for Development Studies also proved that, that, and many people talk very, very lightly about them, but they have achieved a mainstream level that is surprising, and that is the model even for the rest of India. Ghettoism is not there. The moment ghettoism got out, I think your study is highly relevant because of the stigma. The moment stigma goes out, and that could be great. And very often mainstream biased opinions are in favor of stigmatizing, ghettoizing people. I think your study could be very much relevant for India. I think you look at Hyderabad. It's an egalitarian society, but not many other parts of Andhra Pradesh. I think your study is highly relevant. I think we will vouch from Kerala.
Thank you. It is true that there is sometimes when we look at these things, it feels very very depressing that there is so much inequality in the country and the world. But we also have to recognize that we made a tremendous amount of progress in the last 100 years in terms of equality as well, with social inequality. So I think it's important to build on those gains and study them. So in this particular case, we are only talking about businesses. We're not talking about professionals. So this is about the households that own a business that is non-farm business and the income they get from it. So it excludes the professional class.
Okay.
So,
Sir,
yes, go ahead. Yes.
Sir, one more question from Professor Kuppaji Senior, sir. A perfect equality is not possible and it's not good for the future growth. So there can be an inequality provided standard of living is continuously improving. Your comment, please.
Why do you say perfect? I'm just going to make this a little bit provocative. Okay? I'll give my answer in a moment. But why do you think perfect equality is bad for growth? So this is again, like I don't hear an answer. So this is our assumption, right? So we need to test our assumptions. We need to test our assumptions with data. We need to conduct research. I'm not saying that everybody should be given everything without doing anything. But the point is, what is the level of inequality that is good for society's well-being good for economic growth. If the entire wealth of the country and the world is in the hands of a few people, do you think it will really spur innovation and growth? So the idea is not absolutes in terms of perfect equality or inequality, but the idea is about more and less inequality and how that affects people. Okay, so that is what we are interested in. Yeah. No, see, as I said, Mr. Srinivas, is that perfect equality is welcome but not possible. I agree with you. Yes. Again, these are not hypothetical situations. We can look at those, but I would much rather discuss some of these things with the help of research evidence. But we all need to try to make things better and equal for more in terms of opportunities to begin with. What we have seen in this case is that when you do everything, when you have all the same resources and capabilities, you still get less than rest of the people. So this discrimination, a lot of times people think is bad only for the discriminated population, whether it is Dalits or Muslims or Christians or whoever it is. But it is a problem for the entire society because you are reducing the growth of the society. In case of the US, if the black people get as much, if the income gap of the black people is reduced, you are adding about $1 trillion to the economic growth or to the economy of the US. So this is a recent study that none other than McKinsey and Citibank have done. So inequality is good to some extent, but high levels of inequality can be extremely counterproductive because the resources are not put to good use. That I think is being recognized at the moment. Thank you.
And sir, one more question from Kiran KS, MBA 20 batch student. So what is your opinion about equality of outcome?
What do you mean by equality of outcome?
Actually, I'm sorry, I'm reading the question from the student side, so I'm waiting for the response.
Equality of outcome. No, I would much rather we focus on the research study that I presented. I'm happy to give some answers because I study this and I study this and also follow a number of other studies. But it is important that we focus more on the study that has been presented. Because the moment we say inequality, the moment we say caste, we know all the directions in which these discussions go. Right? Have you correlated your studies with the prosperity index of Legerton Institute? No, we haven't done that because first of all, I don't know about that, and this is the first time I'm hearing, and I don't know how we can correlate.
It's a combination of the lifestyle prosperity and the economic prosperity, both put together. And it's a highly established global study. And the Scandinavian countries come first, and all the lifestyle indexes are taken into consideration. And it's like that. I think there will be a lot of positive correlation with your study and this. And
Yeah,
this
so definitely, I'll definitely take a look at this again. This is there's so much to learn that I've been doing this research for the last several years, almost a decade, but I never came across this so far.
Okay, so thank you for bringing that in. I was also wondering about Hofstede's cultural index. Isn't this power distance one of the key aspects of all these inequalities?
Yeah, partly yes. We can say the power distance and inequality correlate very highly. So that's definitely known in the literature. So in case of so why the power distance comes, so those are that is where I think we have to look at the social institutions which bring in the power distance. Power distance doesn't come out of the blue, right? So it's the social institutions that give rise to power distance. Are the hierarchical organizational policies that give rise to the distance, right? So, but yes, they do correlate.
Okay, if I'm not boring enough, one more question. Among the Dalits, compared to other backward classes, isn't there a psychological aspect which has been not taken into consideration about why they have not reached that level of income equality or higher income compared to others? Isn't there some kind of slavishness that is coming as a result of stigma, or is it stigma which is the reason, or is it greater acceptability? Whereas this has not happened among basketball players in the US. It is terrific. LeBron or anybody could be beating anybody any day. So there is no stigma attached to an Afro-American, when they come to a higher level. Whereas here, even if they make money in the Bombay slums, they are still there. Maybe a psychological, Freudian psychological aspect could be looked at. I was just wondering.
No, I think that's a great point. It's a great point. How these experiences of stigma, how the caste influences psychology of not only Dalits, but also the upper castes. Right?
Yes.
Because we know from inequality research that people in the inequality system who are at the top, they feel they are entitled, that they feel they are great, they feel like they should get a lot more. They feel privileged, they sense of entitlement. There again, tons of studies on this. But those who are at the lower level, they don't feel so, right? So they do lose confidence. They do make excuses. We know about this even in the gender studies, right? Women all the time are giving excuses for when they're interrupting in meetings and all of those. So how this affects individuals, I think, is a great area for research, and it hasn't been done. And we all know we talked about this Pygmalion effect, right? If you tell somebody that you're good, you become good. But if you tell somebody that you're bad, you become bad. So I think those effects have not been studied and should be studied. Yes, I fully agree with you on that.
Thank you.
Sir Balasubramanian, sir, value creation, appropriation, and distribution, is all these factors or any specific sector focused, or it's a common for all our sectors?
Yeah, they're common for all. That's those are theoretical concepts. But the distribution, you can see the differences in the appropriation and distribution, right? So there are some industries where distribution may be like very skewed, in the sense, like, for example, again, I'm just trying to give an example just off my head at the moment. Like if you take the case of Apple products, right? The money that goes to the people who make those, you just recently had the violence in the factory, right? The Foxconn factory. So what they get is if I remember well, is less than 2% or 2.5%, something like that. So the money that goes towards, if you pay $100, for example, for all of the Apple products, the money that goes towards manufacturing and testing, both manufacturing and testing, is less than 3%, right? So whereas the same may not be true in other manufacturing contexts. So the distribution changes, and again appropriation changes based on the type of product and the type of industry. But the concepts wise, they're context neutral.
Okay, thank you, sir. And so how an individual can handle a self-stigma?
So what do you mean? Like let's say if somebody is facing institutional stigma, or so self-stigma, as in like stigma can come because you've done something wrong. Like as I said earlier, criminals are those who do undesirable activities, they are stigmatized. But if you are facing institutional stigma, we know some work that talks about covering, right? So we know from research that, for example, black candidates, when they send resumes, they try to remove the identifiers in such a way that the recruiters cannot know whether the person is black or white with the help of name. In the Canadian context, they have done studies where they change the names to half ethnic and half English. Like for example, if you say David Wong, right? So David is an English name. So that means Wong is a Chinese name. That means together, the idea is that they're Canadian as opposed to purely Chinese. So who have just recently come. So there are many ways that people do this. And in personal interactions, the work that I can recollect now talks about how you try not to get into the conversations that deal with the stigma, or that can invoke stigma stereotypes. Right? So education and those kind of things are some, and of course, straight out questioning the people who are stigmatizing is another way to do it too. So there are some ways that you can manage.
So there are one more question from the participant. How do a student get rid of economic inequality?
Sorry, how do students?
How do a student get rid of economic inequality?
Oh, data on economic inequality.
Yeah.
A lot of this data is available. But for example, there is so if you look for the World Income Inequality Database, right? So that is you can find data on inequality of the various societies. So you can download it from there. In fact, World Income Inequality Database. It's run by a group of economists. So there are multiple databases available. World Bank has its own inequality database. You can collect data from that as well. So this data is a lot of this data is publicly available actually.
Thank you, sir. Dear participants, may I request, if you don't have any questions, may I request all of you to type your queries in the chat box and we read out here. Sir, there was one more question. As an individual, what can one do to decrease the economic inequality?
It depends on one's capacity, one's circumstances, right? So I think I'm trying to do by raising awareness, and you can also do the same. It depends, like what your circumstances allow you to do. So it's somewhat individual. So the range of possibilities is quite high.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. I think these are the questions from participant side. May I invite Professor Jyoti PT ma'am for vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Balasubramaniam. Respected guest of honor, Professor Hari Papaji, Dean of MBA Program, Dr. N. Ramachandran, Group Director, Brigadier MC Arshakumar, Principal of MBA Program, Dr. Srikant SP, webinar coordinator Dr. Krishna Kumar, my dear colleagues and student friends, a very good afternoon to all. We all were listening to a thought-provoking situation and a thought-provoking talk on the topic economic inequality, institutional stigma, and business income. Sir, your coverage about the topics like economic inequality, value creation, appropriation, and distribution was really useful. The role of business inequality and the bad impact of inequality was also very much helpful for our management students. It was a new information that due to the recognition gap, lower resources and opportunities, institutional stigma is negatively associated with income. Also, the inability to leverage and lower returns leads to negative effect higher and higher levels of social capital. It was quite wondering to see that the business income of a Dalit household is almost 16% lower. It was an effective session with the outcomes of a real research work. On behalf of Sri Ravi DC, the Chief Facilitator of DCSMAT Group of Institution, sir, I extend a sincere thanks to you for all your efforts and the precious time you spared with the DCMs. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I also extend my sincere thanks to Dr. N. Ramachandran, the Dean of MBA program, for inviting the guest and being with us throughout the webinar. Thank you, sir. A special thanks to Brigadier MC Ashok Kumar, the Group Director of DCSMAT Institution, Principal of MBA program Dr. Srikant SV, Webinar Coordinator Dr. M. Krishna Kumar, and Dr. Balasubramaniam for the sincere guidance and effective coordination. Last but not the least, a special thanks to my dear colleagues, my dear student friends, and other webinar participants for the active participation. Thank you all. Thank you once again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks.